You're listening to Dodge Movie Podcast. Your hosts are Christy and Mike Dodge, the founders of Dodge Media Productions. We produce films and podcasts, so this is a podcast about films. Join them as they share their passion for filmmaking.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Dodge Movie Podcast. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. In this, our second week of December, we are talking about another one of our favorite movies that we listen to. This one tends to be probably more a favorite movie of mine, as Mike at the end through teary eyes said, "Why do you watch this movie?"
It's horrible. It's from the heart perspective, it's a real full of lots of feels.
It has lots of feels, everybody. So get your tissues. I tried to do a lot of filmic analysis so that it would take the focus off of the feels to protect my sweet husband.
Yeah. So this is a Christmas film in the same way that Die Hard is, in that it is set at Christmas. I wouldn't say that it's about Christmas, though.
Really?
Yeah, that's the setting, but not the subject.
All right, now I need our people to weigh in, because I think, I understand you're right, it is the setting, but I feel like there are plot points that involve the holiday. What? Okay, wait, maybe I don't understand. What denotes a Christmas movie? Like it's about Santa?
Well, I would argue that none of the plot points are specific to Christmas. I think The Ring is independent of Christmas. I think all the people meeting each other is independent, right? I mean, I think it's a setting, I'll give you that, but I think it's like you could have done it at Easter.
It definitely has to be a family holiday. I mean, it could be done at Thanksgiving.
Right, 4th of July, everybody comes in.
Except there is a plot point involving Sarah Jessica Parker gifting something that I think is a big plot point.
Okay. All right.
I need all my people to weigh in and settle this for us once and for all.
That's fair.
I'm looking at you, ladies. All right. Today we're talking about Family Stone. It came out in 2005. It was directed by Thomas Bezucha. I really do think that is how, but it's Bezucha. Is that Bazooka?
Let's go with Bazooka. That probably sounds cooler for him. He gets his own bubble gum and rocket-propelled grenade.
Yeah, writer and director. I think I looked him up and he didn't do too much else, but I don't know why, because I love this movie. Stars Diane Keaton, Craig T. Nelson, Rachel McAdams, Dermot Mulroney, Sarah Jessica Parker, Claire Danes, Luke Wilson, and Elizabeth Reeser as the sister that we never remember. It was shot in New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, and a couple scenes in an LA studio. It's a Fox 2000 Pictures. It got a smattering of awards. It got the GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding Film. It was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Performance in a Comedy Musical. And this, my favorite, it won the AARP Movie for Grown-Ups for Best Love Story between Diane Keaton and Craig T. Nelson.
You mean the person who's dying of cancer? Way to go, AARP.
The Family Stone unites in a common cause when their favorite son brings his uptight girlfriend home for the Christmas holiday with plans of proposing. Overwhelmed by the hostile reception, she begs her sister to join her for emotional support, triggering further complications. I grabbed that from IMDB because I thought it was a great description of this film.
Right.
And the tagline is "Feel the Love." Mike, kick us off. What's the pickup line of this film?
This is Meredith. For the last time, this isn't a popularity contest, which is funny because, in fact, Meredith's popularity with the family is a very important part of the film.
Yes. It is in question by almost every person in that family.
Right. I think of them, right, maybe the father, Kelly, played by Craig T. Nelson, is the only one who's willing to give her a chance with, well, maybe that's not
Patrick.
true. Ben.
Well, I thought Ben was, wait, is Ben?
Ben is played by Luke Wilson. And what I noticed in watching this again is Wilson's performance, his acting choice is, he's lusting after her from the moment he sees her. I mean, I kind of got it a little later in the film with the first watching, but watching it this time, it's obvious, even like the charades contest. Mm-hmm. He's really gazing on her pretty hard.
Yes, lots of male gaze in that scene. So we open up the scene with a perfect show don't tell that a lot of films will do. We are introduced to Meredith, who is wearing a business suit, a tight bun, very pointy heels, She is a hard-ass powerhouse of a worker. She is not compassionate. She is bossy.
Does she get stuck in an elevator with a guy?
She does not.
Oh.
But was Katie's look inspired by
I think
Meredith?
Maybe so.
With the exception of the bun. We wanted Katie, we're talking about our film Second Story that we did last year, and our actress, Katie, we did want her in a tight bun at first, but there was a reason why you guys decided, I think it was for continuity, right? So that her hair could kind of look mussed without having to like...
No, as a director, I trust my cast and crew. They made it a creative choice and I went with it.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. So we see Meredith and she is kind of even rude to the clerk. She says, no, the red one. And so that shows us that she's bossy.
Well, even more, basically, we see that Dermot Mulroney, right, his character of Everett, he has made a choice and he's having a pleasant interaction with the saleswoman. And then she comes in and changes his choice and is rude to the saleswoman. I mean, in those 30 seconds, we see everything we need to know about their relationship and Meredith.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Really well done.
Yes, yes. That is a great example of show, don't tell. There was no voiceover. If a movie opens up and there's voiceover, give it 5 minutes and then run. Because this is not going to be a good movie if they need to rely on that kind of exposition giving in the vein of a voiceover.
And I think we're both thinking of the same film, but out of courtesy to the people involved, we won't mention the film's name, but she's right. Beware.
Offline asked me about that film,
yeah.
But when at the 20-minute mark, we still were getting
VO. Like, okay, your film does not apparently make much sense to other people if you have to keep telling us what's going on.
Walk us through it. Yeah. Oh my God, that was painful.
That was rough.
That was painful.
But then we go to, which I thought was really clever, after we have kind of that opening scene, right, that's establishing what we're here to deal with, we go to this Norman Rockwell style postcard opening.
I was just going to say, before you go into what I thought you were going to go into, yes, the Currier and Ives like style of...
Right, which is funny because in the film, that family is nothing at all like a Norman Rockwell painting, right?
No, in that IMDb description, they said an eclectic family, and they very much are.
They are eclectic, but they're also kind of dysfunctional.
I think they're a normal family. I totally think they're a normal family. I think that's what families are. They're messy. People sometimes say the wrong things. I think, one parent is trying to protect the kids from something the other parent thinks they can handle.
Okay. So basically, the father is intelligent and sensitive and just trying to make his way with all these crazy people around him. Okay, I sign up for that. Yeah. Yep.
And the mom can be a bit controlling, a bit hovery, a bit, she's judgmental about who Everett can pick.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that. So we go from this department store scene, and you brought up, do you want to talk about the department store?
Yeah, my question is whether that's going to work as well with subsequent generations when they watch the film. Because our generation grew up with malls and department stores. And so we have visceral memories of being at the mall at Christmas time and how busy those department stores were and kind of that chaos and everything. And as we moved to ordering everything from Amazon, right, a shopping for Christmas scene now is somebody at their MacBook, click, click, right? It's a different thing. And so do people and I suppose people who grew up in different countries that didn't have malls, shopping malls that were the phenomena that they were in the US, right? Does that play as well for that scene? I mean, people obviously kind of know what's going on. They can understand he's purchasing a thing, but the context, I'm just curious if it lands for people of different generations or different countries.
Mm-hmm. No, it was a good note. Write in and let us know what you guys think. So we go from that scene to the hustle and bustle of the department store to a very quiet Diane Keaton is sitting in a room. She is in the background. There's the edge of a Christmas tree with an obviously child-made felt stuffed ornament on the tree. And she's looking very pensive. And I said, this is another example of a show don't tell. The look on her face isn't like peaceful, adoring, reflective. It's sad, heavy, and it gives the audience the note that she's got something pretty big on her mind.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, get out now. But yeah, it says, it definitely establishes her character. The first time we see her character, there is this wistfulness. There is obviously something going on. Now, I want to mention, since you brought up the Christmas tree, one of the things that I think communicates visually is what is in the scene. So if you have an actor delivering a line, it lands with the audience different than if the subject of them delivering the line is in some portion in the shot, right? Maybe their shoulder or the top of their head or something. The Christmas tree is in a ton of shots, right?
That's why I think it's a Christmas movie.
Okay, that's good evidence. But the Christmas tree, and maybe with beautiful bouquet in the background or it's dirty on the left, it is in a ton of shots.
Yeah.
And so I like that.
Yeah.
I love the colors of Christmas trees, the light.
There's a ton of lights.
Contrasting with the dark green of the tree. I like the symbolism of it. I love having that Christmas tree in there. And I noticed in the most recent watching how often it occurred. And that to me was tip of the cap to the director and to the cinematographer, because I think that works kind of with this. And they also had some really great framing. So whoever found that location, the house they used, did a great job, because it's got this big rectangular doorway with kind of like a prominent lintel on it,
like a molding
that serves as a frame from both directions. And they have a shot early on when the whole family is there, and they're framed by that door opening. It is fantastic. So that house, really, the sets are fantastic for that. The inn is beautiful, but I think that house is perfect for that family. It kind of represents it.
And now we're going to meet all the characters. And this is another way that, I mean, this is one of the reasons I love this movie, is as we are introduced with all the characters, you learn so much, and it's so subtle you don't even realize you're picking up on it. But the son, Thad, and his partner, Patrick, they come in and they get all the presents and they go inside. And she's so excited to see both of them, and she hugs them both. And Craig T. Nelson, and she signs American Sign Language to Thad. So that tells us, Thad is hard of hearing. And then the dad, Craig T. Nelson, who is a big guy, and we know from like Coach in a very macho role, but he hugs and embraces Patrick, who is a black man and who is obviously his gay son's, husband, with just such an embrace that it's like, they're totally cool with this. That's awesome. These are the kind of parents they are. And then it rolls into Rachel McAdams shows up, and we love everything that you learn about her. She shows up in an old beat up Volvo carrying an NPR canvas bag with a laundry basket instead of a suitcase. And her clothing is she almost looks homeless.
Yeah, I would say maybe thrift store chic. Now, with the NPR book bag and the Volvo, definitely I got hippie vibe. But then she's inside later and she's wearing a t-shirt which has a dirt track sprint car on it. And that to me says thrift store. That basically she just grabs whatever
was clean on the floor that day.
Yeah, and she got that t-shirt for free at the thrift store.
Right. And then her oldest sister comes in, who has a beautiful red, cable knit sweater, and her hair is done. And she comes in with probably at this point, the only grandchild, who is about 7. And she's pregnant with her second. And you can just see that, she's the opposite of Amy. Susanna is, she's the oldest daughter, and she's married, and it's funny though, because she's always talking to her husband. And you even asked me, do we ever see the husband? And a fairly well-known character actor portrays the husband, and he shows up later.
Right. I was just thinking that actor has 1, maybe 2 scenes, right?
Yeah.
So good for him, I guess. He got the work, but you might argue why, right? The character really doesn't have enough interaction there. But you can see that the character of Susanna, right? She's in some sense the most grounded of all of the children, the kind of the one sane one. And which is good because she's the one with kids. So I'm glad that she's got her act together. And then we see very late, we see Ben, played by Luke Wilson. He shows up and he is rumpled and disheveled, right? And he doesn't wear thrift store clothes like Amy does, but he definitely, you understand when the mom yells at him, no pot in the house.
Right. Although you picked up some pot brownies.
Yes.
I have a little, I don't know what I would call this, like a guiding good choices moment or something. Some pop brownies are brought in and put on mom's desk in the kitchen,
Right.
well within reach of the 7-year-old. And so
Right.
that you were like, oh, no, those are pop brownies. I'm like, no, they're not, because they brought them in and just set them down for anybody to have. And later we find out, no, you were right. They were pop brownies.
Right. So I did think from a story perspective, I couldn't understand why the mom was yelling no pot in the house to Ben when there was a giant plate of weed brownies in the kitchen.
In the kitchen that Dad
Yeah,
brought in and
it seems-
sat in front of Mom.
It seems interesting.
And I have no problem. Enjoy your pop brownies, but please use discretion around children.
But from the category of kind of show don't tell, right? When we first see Ben, his shirt color is this pale pink that happens to perfectly match Meredith's Jimmy Choo shoes or Paco Rabanne or whatever her expensive shoes are, which I thought was an interesting choice, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you picked up on that. I didn't catch that the other times that I had seen it.
Yeah.
And so Meredith and Everett show up, and a family who we've seen just embrace everybody who has come through the door. Craig T. Nelson goes over to give Meredith a huge hug, and she just completely cold, stiff, like cold, wet fish.
She shakes his hand, doesn't she?
Well, no, he like she does like straight arms down by her side, and he goes in for a big old bear hug.
Okay, as a person who's not so comfortable with hugging, I kind of see where she's coming from.
Yeah, but that's kind of what my family did to you, I think.
Yes, and I probably seized up just like
just
that
like
too.
Meredith. And then another way where we see that Meredith is a little bit stuffy and just kind of, she almost can't read the room. She finds it inappropriate to sleep in Everett's room, even though Mom and Dad are totally fine with it. They're grown-ups. They're like in their 30s. Mom and Dad know what they do behind closed doors, and so they're fine. But she wants to present this appearance of like purity, and so she wants to sleep in her own room. So they kick Amy, Rachel McAdams, who already doesn't like Meredith. She has to now sleep on the couch so that Meredith can have her own room. And then her phone rings, and it's her sister on the other end. And she just looks at them like, all right, get out so I can talk to my sister.
Yeah, it was a great acting choice by SJP. She doesn't say, would you please excuse him? She just uses this head bop, this kind of like...
Slight. It's such a slight head. Yeah.
It was so well done.
Uh-huh.
And speaking of her character, I was curious if the original script had that verbal tick, the throat clearing, or if that was also an acting choice by Sarah Jessica Parker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was good. So, and then like those pink shoes that you were talking about, the granddaughter's playing with them and the heel kind of is coming off. And so, she grabs them from the child and everybody looks at her like, what's the big deal? And she can't read the room, that she's not really getting along with everybody. And then she's telling this story of how they met, and everybody's eyes are just glazed over. They could care less. And she doesn't see it.
So I might have a little bit more sympathy for the character of Meredith, because as I saw it, certainly with the shoes as a good example, she's white knuckling it, right? She is holding on for all she's worth to try to keep things together. And there's a great point later in the film where they're at a bar and she's about to get really drunk, and Ben tells her, just stop trying so hard. And I think that really, to me, makes sense with the character. She's obviously a type A person who's gotten everything she's ever got by working harder, by being super intense and super driven and all those things. And he, of course, represents the exact opposite of that. Oh, gosh. That's basically the character of Jock in Second Story. Did I just rewrite Family Stone?
We're seeing some similarities. Yeah. Maybe you like this movie more than you think you do.
Well, I certainly like the pair of those two together.
Yeah.
But so I think, narratively that the opposites attract, whereas Everett is what I think is the first son. We don't know for sure, but I think he's firstborn. And you see the lacrosse trophy in his room, and he's also that kind of stereotypical overachiever, and Ben is not. He looks to be the youngest, one of the two youngest, him and Amy, and 5 children. By the time you get to the 5th one, nobody cares.
Right.
Play with scissors, who cares?
Yep.
So he's just a free spirit. He's a documentarian, so we of course like him because filmmakers are awesome. And Amy as well also does not appear to care about getting ahead in any conventional sense.
Do we ever find out what Amy does for a living?
We don't. I don't think she does anything for a living. Okay. I think that's why she's bringing laundry.
So there's a great scene where they play charades. And then I think it's right after that scene, Mom is kind of telling Meredith about Amy's first boyfriend, Brad Stevenson.
Brad Stevenson.
And she just shares with this person who she's just met. That's who popped Amy's cherry. And Amy, of course, is not happy with this because throughout the bulk of the film, Rachel McAdams' character, Amy, is not a fan of Meredith. She's already gone out to dinner with her and her brother Everett. And the whole time she saw what we all have been seeing, that Meredith is a little self-involved, a little, tight and cold. And she's like, she's not the one for him. I love the running gag throughout most of the film. More than one person said it to Meredith, like, oh, yeah, go ahead and go in the other room. You know we're all going to talk about you in here.
Yeah.
They said it like the dad said it once. I think Everett even said it to her once. And then Ben said it to her. So there's this whole, we're unabashed about how we are going to talk about you behind your back.
Which I think is maybe not so good that they're talking about it behind her back, but I do admire the authenticity of saying that this is what's happening, right?
We're all aware that, and I think everybody knows that. I remember when I went down to meet your family that very first time, I think we're all aware of what's going on. Like we mentioned it to people last December when we went to the home of our now oldest fiance's house. We knew the stakes, right? I think people...
Right. So when there's always this thing that as soon as you leave lunch or a party or whatever, people talk about you. You should know that, right? As you're going out the door and you're waving at them, the door closes and then they start talking about you. That's just the way humans work.
Why did he tell the blonde joke?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Although you threw me off with blonde because with me it'd probably be more monkey jokes.
Well,
but I see where you're going.
I was trying to do something somewhat G-rated.
Yeah.
And we talk about cinematography and framing, and you were talking about the scenes in the house, but we both noticed there's a scene where Ben is bringing Meredith coffee, which reminded me of when I brought you orange juice.
Right.
And they frame it where he stands up and they stay basically at eye level of Meredith, who is sitting in the car, which basically we're seeing from his sternum down.
If even that,
and
yeah.
he's wearing sweats in the morning. So I'll let everybody use their imagination.
Right. I'll be a little bit more direct. His gentlemanly bits are featured. And
they're right at her eye level. They're in her face.
And he's doing that thing that almost no one does, where he's rocking kind of back and forth from heels to toe. And to keep your balance, you kind of shift your pelvis forward and back. Very much. But I saw that as kind of a subconscious behavior by the character of Ben, but I thought it was fascinating directorially or cinematographically that they chose that framing for that shot. And, I think maybe it's only fair that actors sometimes have to show off their body parts, but what was that conversation like in the trailer?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's interesting because at this point, I don't think that it's entered our mind. I mean, it's hard for me to watch this with fresh eyes.
First time through, it hadn't occurred to me. Because we now know, Ben likes Meredith. He's intrigued by her at least, right? He's curious about her. I don't think it's maybe someone that he necessarily would have fallen for, but it's almost like maybe from that filmic perspective, he's looking at her going, what makes you tick? Is he just trying to sociologically dissect her? You know what I mean? I do.
Or do you think he was attracted from point one?
I think that the character, as written, at least in the treatment before they wrote the screenplay, it was love at first sight for him.
Okay.
I think he was enamored of her. He was enthralled with her. And it makes it a little weird because technically she's with his brother, but Ben's the little brother. He didn't care. Right.
So then the dad has to tell everybody, because everybody's kind of being a little rough on Meredith. And at different times, they're all policing each other. At times they're telling Amy to back off from her. At times, Patrick, the gay boy's husband, he tells Diane Keaton to kind of back off and be nice. She's trying. And there's a scene where the dad is huddled, because Meredith, part of why she was in the car leaving is she's going to go stay at the hotel. She does not feel welcomed in this house. People have been kind of mean to her, they feel, or she feels. And so she's going to go to the hotel. So the dad's like, all right, everybody, we are going to behave. Everett likes this woman. He wants us to like her, and we need to try. Right, Amy? I'm looking at you.
There's a great line when the character of Julie, the sister played by Claire Danes, first meets the family, and she says, Amy, the mean sister.
Right. And everybody's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And she is like a straight shooter, kind of like them. So that is even another nail in kind of like Meredith's coffin, because the family welcomes Julian like with no problems, and she fits right in, and she chats with them as if she's one of the family, which makes Meredith look even more like an outsider.
Well, I think the fundamental problem that Meredith is having is her lack of authenticity, right? I think that's what they respond to in Julie is she doesn't have an agenda. She's not trying to put forward any particular, narrative or face. She's just being herself, and they're pretty tolerant of that. Now, we also see, though, in the deliciously awkward dinner scene where Meredith maybe does have some areas where she's in need of some open-mindedness, right? And as you mentioned before, she really doesn't read the room very well. And so she makes a verbal misstep, perhaps, although I do think she kind of fundamentally believes kind of what she's saying, but she says it in an awkward, clumsy way.
But she doubles down. So
Yeah, and then she doubles down on it, right? She's not reading the room.
Yeah, she doesn't help herself.
And again, in that scene, the patriarch of the family is attempting to restore order, and he's obviously very sensitive and caring and wonderful. Boy, dads are great.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite scenes, probably of all time. Yeah. I think I love the devotion that Diane Keaton has to all of her kids, that she maybe made missteps and maybe was a little bit too, I don't know, in their lives. But
well, okay. Now we must say that you probably respond a little bit to the bit where they say that she wanted all of her children to be gay.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But so because Meredith missteps, she flees the home once again, and Ben takes her to the local bar where, like you mentioned before, she starts to unwind and she starts to become a little bit more comfortable. And I know earlier when you were talking about that scene, I was going to say, I love it when he says, you have a freak flag. You're just not brave enough to fly it, or you're just not willing to fly it. And so he sees in her that there is somebody who can relax, who can just be easy and fit into the family. She's just so scared she can't do it. And so while this is going on, Everett has picked up Julia, or no, they're looking for her. And so they're walking down these beautiful streets.
It's gorgeous. I mean, I don't know if places in Vermont look like that, but I think the Vermont Travel Bureau probably wants you to think that. It was gorgeous with the lights and the background, the beautiful bouquet, and they're walking down this long sidewalk, so they've got the leading lines. It was just a gorgeous shot.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Well, and Claire Danes and Dermot Mulroney look good on film, so that helps too.
Mm-hmm. And I know one thing, we're going a little bit out of order, but back when we were talking about Diane Keaton sitting pensively at the beginning of the movie, there's little hints, and they're not super overt, that something's going on with Mom. And the scene that definitely tips it over the edge is Ben and Kelly, the dad, take those pot brownies, and they're sitting at the football stadium and they're enjoying them. And Ben basically asks, so it's back. And so we're like, oh, okay. And there's little moments throughout the movie that you're like, oh, does Mom have cancer, or is Mom dying of cancer? Or like, there's even a moment where Susanna says, where's Mom? And Patrick says she's taking a nap. And it's with this heaviness and this knowingness that
great acting.
Yeah. That I said, oh, it's not just, oh, she's taking a nap. It was, she's taking a nap. It was,
so credit to the director, because we know what's happening, but they don't go too heavy on it, right? So there are other movies throughout time, which you probably like all of them, where that's really kind of the focus, and that's not necessarily the focus, right? It's a force at play here, but it's really more about the family, right?
And so it is kind of like adding tension, though, because one of the things is Everett wants Diane Keaton's mother's ring that he had been promised to give to his bride, but Diane Keaton's character doesn't feel like Meredith is the one. And so she tells him no. Like she says, I'm not
Which is amazing. But Meredith isn't the one for Everett, right? And I think the audience knows that too.
And so do moms. Moms know best. And so you have to listen to moms. And Everett is really upset because he's like, you promised me. And at one point, and I didn't understand it, but you figured it out, Ben and Everett go to the jewelry store because basically if Everett can't get his grandma's ring.
Oh, I think it was Brother Tad, not, I think.
You're right.
Not Ben.
You're right. It was not Ben. It was Thaddeus.
Thaddeus
and Everett go to, it's not funny, Thaddeus, Everett, but then Amy.
And Ben.
Like, did we just like.
Well, you get tired by the time you get to kids 4 and 5. Yeah.
They were like long names when they were older.
I don't have
Susanna,
to spell them. Yeah.
And then Thaddeus, Everett.
Yeah, they had to teach those kids
Amy
to write those long names. And then it was like, nope, 3 letters, we're good.
I think you're right. They could have named one of them Ed.
A. Martinez is like, hey, Mom and Dad, were you lazy?
Deep pull. If anyone knows A. Martinez, please email me.
Yeah, I'd like legit buy you lunch.
Yeah, totally. Okay, get back on track. All right, we were they're in the jewelry store. Thaddeus and Everett are in the jewelry store, and Thaddeus says something like, what was it? Like, it's not going to help Mom if you do this, or something like.
Yeah.
I didn't understand why Everett thought that if he married Meredith, it would make it easier that their mom's cancer came back and that she's dying. Can you help? You had an insight to that.
Well, Everett thought that would make his mom happy, right? So we know that Everett is the oldest of them. Susanna's married with grandchildren. Nobody else is really married. And as the firstborn, he feels like it's his job. He should have gotten married first. He should have the first kid, all that. So he's an overachiever. He sees that as his role in the family. So he's trying to give his mother this one last gift of, okay, I'm going to get married. I'm going to set this right. And his brother's like, no, this is not what's going to make her happy.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that was what it was. So Diane gives him the ring, and then Everett goes downstairs and asks Julie to try it on, as you would. And I immediately gasped and said, I think that's bad luck. And then one of the characters says, Everett, no, that's bad luck. But he puts it on Julie's finger, and of course, it gets stuck because
that always happens.
That's what happens in movies, right?
Which again is kind of a show don't tell. In case the audience wasn't paying attention to see the interaction with them when they were searching for Meredith, and there's a point where at the room he wants to maybe come in and talk a little bit or do something else, and she says no. But then there's a knock at the door, and she spins around like, oh boy, he came back, but it's not him. But so we see that, but in case you weren't paying close attention, there can be no bigger sign than to put a wedding ring on someone's finger. I mean, that is
right.
But here's the other thing too, is to me, it showed how much he was out of his head, because I don't think there's any girlfriend on the planet that would be like cool with you putting a wedding ring on someone else's finger.
Yeah.
Like, when she came in the room and her sister, even if it wasn't stuck, her sister was wearing the wedding ring, that would not end well. But he wasn't even thinking that way. He was just, he was, irritated. So.
Yep. So there's a great scene where they play the dance to the Sugar Plum Fairies. Another reason it's a Christmas movie. As everyone is running around and there's a big chase, and Everett and Ben are kind of like slapping each other like they would if they were like 12.
Like all Christmas movies.
Yes. Siblings fight at Christmas. Do you not remember some of our Christmas?
Okay. I did not fight, right? So for me, when I saw them chasing each other through the house, it just caused me anxiety, because 2 adult males, when they get in a fight, people get crippled, right? That's not something to play around with. That's
why I thought it was funny that did you see how clumsy their fight was? They were slapping each other.
Right. Well,
there
they
were no
bad
punches.
at it. There's that. Yeah. I mean, there was some head trauma in that.
Yes. And then there's a whole scene with a strata that, or two stratas that do not make it. It's a great scene, punctuated by one of the boys hitting the table leg. The table goes down with all the contents of all of Christmas dinner on it. I mean, it's a great scene. And then everyone's watching the snowfall. Meredith and Ben are in bed and they're watching the snowfall. I mean, they're all clothed and they're just looking up. I think you see Kelly and Diane Keaton. They're in their bed and you can see the snow falling. Like I love the dichotomy of chaos and then just peace and calm edited next to one another.
Right.
And earlier in the film, Meredith gives every person a portrait of Diane Keaton's character, Sybil, when she was younger, pregnant with Amy. And at this point, she doesn't know that Sybil is dying, but everybody else does.
Yeah, you can really, I mean, it's good acting from the whole cast, but in particular, Craig T. Nelson's acting there was wonderful. How he got misty-eyed in what I thought was just the right kind of way of somebody who had kind of come to grips with what was happening, but of course was still sad, but he's trying to keep it together. You know, just all of that. There was like a wonderful, understated kind of tension to his reaction, where again, if the audience wasn't paying attention before, this is a sign that there's something else. But see, Meredith doesn't know.
Meredith doesn't know, but I thought it was sweet because Sybil looks up at her after they all have a moment and she explains that she's pregnant with Amy and everything. And everybody is just like, oh, wow, thanks, Meredith. And Sybil looks up at her and she goes, you did good. This is good. And she points to the picture. And I thought, oh, that would be such a moment for the hopeful daughter-in-law. Like, I finally got a win in my column because up until then she had none.
Yeah, she was striking out.
Yeah. And so there's this great last scene where it's a year later and we see who's there and who's not. And then they pan over and there's this portrait hanging there. And you pointed out, rightfully so, that it has a black mat around it, which isn't super common. And not only does it have a black mat, but it's like, what, a 4 or 5 inch all the way
thick,
around.
You would never do that.
Mat, but it provides this beautiful reflective surface because now Amy, who has softened and now she looks a little bit more presentable. She has the red cable knit sweater on with some nice pants, and she kisses her love interest in the film. And I thought it was, I see why the cinematographer did it, even if that type of portrait isn't practical.
Right. One of the interesting things to me is actors are generally chosen for being relatively photogenic, right? Mm-hmm. And the cast are all just a bunch of lookers.
Very
and
much
so
so.
It was a little bit hard to buy Rachel McAdams as Amy as kind of this frumpy homeless
sister.
person because you have eyeballs. I mean, she's still...
We've seen her in The Notebook.
Right. In Wedding Crashers, which I think was filmed the same year.
Uh-huh.
But the same thing with Luke Wilson. I mean, he's a very handsome guy. And okay, they put him in an unironed polo, but it's still, like you're looking at, you're like, oh boy. But I think the actors bring to it, a good character. And then you have the counterpoint of like Brad Stevenson, who I wish I could remember the actor's name, but he does a delightful dork. He has that kind of awkward energy that really sells that, like, they were together in high school and he's been pining for her. And so when you see her at the end of the film with Brad Stevenson, you kind of, you kind of get where, okay, now she's got her act together.
Right. I think it's such a sweet movie, and I know it ends on somewhat of a sad note, although, Thaddeus and Patrick the next year bring a baby that they had been wanting, and we have, 5 happy siblings? Because everybody ended...
Right. Well, again, tip of the cap to the director, because I liked it because he didn't hit you in the face with the fact that Diane Keaton was dead. It was done in a subtle kind of way.
Right. Like, yeah, we didn't see cut to all of them, in the dreary cemetery with the casket going down and them all wearing black crying. Like, you didn't have to see that.
Right.
It was just and this is part of it. Like, life goes on. And yes, we have these sad moments, but
Right.
just think of all of the memories that we had last Christmas with Mom. And I can't remember if it's already on the tree, but once again, we see that red felted ornament that we saw Diane Keaton looking at. And then now they're hanging new ornaments. And so much like we have all those memories, but now we're going to make more memories. And it shows that the family comes together. Like, Mom's dying didn't shatter the family. Like, if anything, it probably strengthened them because they probably are all maybe coming around Dad to make sure he's okay. And I don't know. Yes, bad things happen and they're awful, but we can triumph. I think I need movies that have a hopeful ending. And to me, this one does it. So even the sadness is countered by that.
A couple of things. One is when you were talking about not, hitting us over the head with it or what have you, it for some reason reminded me of some of those great samurai films where instead of showing something horrible, you just show the character having a reaction.
Yeah.
Right. So I like that filmmaking. And I will say, tip of the cap to set design in this one, because one thing I noticed with this most recent watching is in those last scenes after Diane Keaton has died, her character, not the actor, the kitchen is noticeably different. And especially that table area where the weed brownies went is much, much, much cleaner. So that kind of implies that a certain amount of that chaos and rumpledness was from her, right? Yeah. And so that's another way to tell the audience that she's gone, because that thing that the house, which is almost a character in itself, is also changed.
Yeah, and I'm probably a ton of projection here for me, but I would think that it could be even Craig T. Nelson trying to bring some order to and just calmness to the chaos that grief would bring you. And so it's just, let's simplify everything. Let's not have a lot of clutter. But I'm totally projecting here. So
maybe a little bit.
You mentioned a little bit of head trauma.
I did. So there's a great scene that you had noticed where early on at 13:20, there's a couple of dope slaps where Ben and Amy each get smacked upside the head.
But no, what I love is Amy hits Everett.
No, Amy hits Ben.
Amy hits Ben. Ben hits...
No, and then Everett hits Amy. Like, he smacks her upside the head.
And so I said, oh, look, she's one of the brothers.
Yes. Ben noogies Amy at 20 minutes in.
Once again, further proof that she's one of the brothers.
Right. Meredith hits her head while furiously packing.
Right.
Because she's in the
tiny...
the attic-y kind of area. Yeah.
Right.
Claire Danes as Julie, although perhaps this was a stunt person, takes a nasty spill out of the bus.
Oh.
Right.
We watched it twice, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it was quite the spill.
Bad.
And then lastly, after the end of the fight on Christmas Day, when Everett and Ben are under the table, there's some slapping of each other.
Some very comedic slapping.
Right.
All right. There was a little bit of driving in this. Did you create a driving review?
Well, yes. So from the standpoint of kind of set design, the yellow 1981 Volvo 245 really just says, I listen to NPR a lot, right?
Yes.
And then by contrast, Everett's 2002 Saab is about kind of the very definition of pinky in the air hoity-toity.
Right.
So that was nice how they kind of told us about the characters that way. I will say from a driving perspective, there's a bit where Meredith takes the Saab and gets stuck between two trees. Okay, the only way she could get between the trees without being yanked in like by winches is to drift it in. And if she knew enough to drift that car, she would know enough not to drift it in between two trees.
And Craig T. Nelson's Volvo wagon.
Yeah, and so you can see that it's newer, right? It's a nice maroon color. But see, so she's following in her dad's footsteps, but as a professor, he can afford a newer vehicle.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I like it.
And then the last little bit is don't run in front of a bus.
No,
that's not safe.
Not advisable.
Please don't do that.
Yes. Please be safe, everybody. Okay. How about, there had to have been lots of smoochies because like I said, there's 5 couples at the end. So
smoochy, smoochy, smoochy.
How many smoochies do we have?
Well, we have so many smoochies, I don't have record of them.
Okay. So this is a loving movie. This is clearly a romantic comedy with some drama thrown in. Or would you say it's a drama with a little bit of romance and comedy thrown in?
Okay. No, that's a really good question. I can't answer you right off the top of my head, but I will say that you could argue that Meredith is transformed by Ben. So very interesting. But my instinct is it's a drama with some romance and comedy in it.
This is where I need to learn how to do that poll-like thing that they have on Instagram. Maybe somebody could teach me where we have, our post and we say, which is it? And people could vote.
Yeah, like in the stories, you can do
I know.
A or B kind of stuff.
I'm showing my age. Okay, let's go to the numbers.
Ah.
The budget for this movie was $18 million. It did quite well domestically. It made $60 million and worldwide just shy of $93 million. So I would say this is a success. I'm not the only person on the planet that likes this movie. It got a 6.3 on IMDB, but we know they rate low.
They do.
It's about an hour and 43 minutes. It's rated PG-13, so the whole family can watch it almost. We paused this film so many times, you guys, that we lost count. And by 30 minutes, we were well into almost double figures. So this one, like I said, I was trying to make very filmically. And we are at 51 minutes recording time of this episode. So needless to say, I really love this movie.
She has a lot to say about it.
I do. I will quickly say, I would love to hear what movies you guys like. I would love to hear what you think of Family Stone. If this is one of your favorites. If you think it's a comedy or if you think it's a drama or if you think it's a Christmas movie, please, please, please call us and let me know. We can either play it or I can just revel in being right that it is a Christmas movie. The phone number is 971-245-4148. Or you can email me at Christy@DodgeMediaProductions.com and let me know what you think. That it is, in fact, a Christmas movie. And as our gift to you this December, because we are so grateful that you guys have been so supportive of the podcast in the most recent months, we keep increasing in downloads, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. Thank you for liking it. Thank you for reviewing it. Thank you for your comments on Instagram, especially you, Mike.
Yeah.
We would like to give you the gift of I have made up a movie list of all the films that we watched this year. If you want to see that whole list so that you can keep track, you can play bingo. Which ones have I seen? Which ones do I need to see? Shoot me an email and I will email you that list. Also, big bonus, if you would like, you can email me at that same email, Christy@DodgeMediaProductions.com, and we will give you the list for next year. We have created it. We know what we're watching next year. We know what we're talking about next year. And if you want to get a jump on all of those movies and watch them while you have some downtime, shoot me an email and I will send you the 2022 DMP movie list. So happy holidays, everybody. Please enjoy the time with your family. Let's take some moments to not rush and just be peaceful and be with our families. And never forget,
Dodges never stop, and neither do the movies.
Thanks for listening to Dodge Movie Podcast with Christy and Mike Dodge of Dodge Media Productions. To find out more about this podcast and what we do, go to DodgeMediaProductions.com. Subscribe, share, leave a comment, and tell us what we should watch next. Dodges never stop, and neither do the movies.